What's up, everyone? Kevin here from Skywatcher. Welcome to another episode of the What's Up Webcast. We do this every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here at the Skywatch USA YouTube channel. We cover everything from what's up in the nighttime sky to equipment to helpful tips and tricks. And of course, at the end of the month, we have a special guest to talk about their specialty in the field of astronomy. I will let you know today is a pre-recorded episode. Our team is currently out at Starfest outside of Toronto, so we are not currently in the office right now or the studio. So again, pre-recorded episode. However, most of these episodes are live with the handful throughout the year. If we're traveling or the holidays or something's going on where we can't be here, then it's a recorded episode like this. But if you like what you see here and you want to support the channel a little bit more, please go ahead and subscribe, leave a like on the channel. Let us know we're doing a good job. If you have an idea for an episode that you'd like us to cover, please email us at info@skywatchusa.com and title it What's Up. We're always looking for ideas for episodes, so feel free to shoot them over at any time. If you want to stay up to date with what's going on at Skywatcher, you can head over to skywatchusa.com and hit subscribe and save up at the top and join our email list, and then you'll be part of our monthly email blast and just keeping up with what's going on, including new products and sales. So head over there right now and check it out. Of course, if you want to support us a little bit more, you can head over to skywatcher.threadless.com, pick up some cool swag to go with your Skywatcher stuff. And then you can also head over to skywatchusa.com, and that's where you can purchase any of our products. You can also pick a dealer of your choice, whoever you love working with. There's a lot of great dealers out there. Go ahead and, choose where you'd like. But you can always head over to our website and check out all the new stuff that's out or any specs that you might need. So check it out. This month, currently, we have our Dobsonians on sale till the end of August 2025. So if you're looking for some aperture heading into fall and eventually the winter months here, some aperture is a nice thing to have, or get a head start on that holiday shopping. So grab it while you can. All right, so let's get started. So today we are actually talking about meteor showers. Now, many of us in the hobby, we're all aware of meteor showers, at least what they are. But it comes up quite a bit. We see it in the news, and it's kind of like the supermoon and all these other things that are going on, where it can be a little frustrating for us experienced astronomers where think it may be a big deal. But we have to remember that any publicity to get people to looking up is a good thing. You never know who you're going to inspire to get out and get into the hobby. So as silly as it's the blood moon or the dumb graphics that are posted online are inaccurate, we do have to see that our hobby and our interest is getting light. And one of those things is meteor showers. However, meteor showers, as many of us are probably aware, are not always the most exciting thing to see from our backyard. And we're going to go over that and figure out the best ways to observe a meteor shower and go from there. So if you're not aware, if you're new, a meteor shower is when Earth passes through a stream of meteors. And they exist all throughout the year, various positions in Earth's orbit. We're usually going through some kind of debris field at some point, almost every month. There's some kind of debris field that Earth is cruising through, and luckily our atmosphere protects us from a lot of those particles, and they burn up in the atmosphere, and that's a meteor shower. But it's caused from debris, usually from comets. It can also be from asteroids, but a lot of times it's from Earth's cruising through the tail or debris field of a comet that had kind of cruise through that particular area in Earth's orbit. And because these relative debris fields stay in the same position within Earth's orbit, the meteor showers are generally pretty predictable throughout the year. And there's a list of them that we're actually going to go over. And that's usually why we have various meteor showers at different points of the year. Now, it is August. So August is kind of the big one. That's the Perseid meteor shower. Sometimes they can be big enough to where it's called a meteor storm, where they're just these huge outbreaks of shooting stars coming through the atmosphere. Obviously, it's not an actual star. Most of these are about the size of a grain of sand when we see them coming through the atmosphere with superheated gas around them as they burn up in the atmosphere. And that's usually what we're seeing. Like I said earlier, there are numerous meteor showers each year, and they are fairly predictable as well as when the time is going to occur. Usually, when I'm talking about meteor showers here on the webcast, I like to go to the American Meteor Society, or AMS, and their website is very well organized, and there's lots of information on it. And they break down meteor showers into different classes, usually due to the intensity of how many we're talking about. So let's bring that up real quick. We can go over to, here's the it's amsmeteors.org is the website. And they have all kinds of stuff on here. They have photos, they have videos. You can break down all the terminology for these. But what I like to do is I like to go to the meteor shower calendar. And that really gives you a breakdown of what's currently active. And the nice thing is they have a lot of notes on this as well. So you can kind of read up on it and pay attention to what is interesting and if this is going to be a good one or not. And we're going to talk about how to observe meteor showers here shortly, because there is some things that we need to keep an eye out for. Now, but if you want to know more about it, or you want to see the calendar, when things might be occurring, or if it's going to be a good one, because there are some variables that do take place with meteor showers that can kind of dictate whether this one's in a good position for us to observe this year, or it's not ideal. And some meteor showers, such as the Perseids, are much larger with a lot brighter, much easier to see meteors, and maybe more frequent meteors. Usually it's measured in meters per hour. But you can read all about that here, and they've actually broken it down into different classifications. Let me see if I can find, here we go, major meteor showers. Let me see if I can get over there. This was acting a little weird earlier. I'm not sure if their website is being funky or what. It's just being really slow this morning. So not sure what's going on. But anyway, they have a list of, oh, come on. There we go. Yeah, their website, something must be going on with their server, because at least right now, of course, when we're doing this, but that's not what I wanted. They do have a nice list somewhere. I should have had this up real quick. But there's all kinds of information that you can actually cruise through. Here we go. That's what I wanted. So here's how the AMS actually breaks it down, and it's very well organized, by the way, because there are tons of meteor showers throughout the year. So they have broken it down into major meteorite shower class 1. These are usually the ones that you probably hear about on the news. These are the big ones, where you probably, especially if you're new to observing meteor showers, these are probably the ones that you want to focus on the most to get started. You have the Quaternids, the Lyrids, the Eta Aquariids, Southern Delta Aquariids, Perseids, which are big ones, Orionids, Leonids, Geminids, and the Ursids. So those are your big ones. If some of your friends are like, hey, there's a meteor shower this weekend, these are really the ones that you probably want to focus on for greatest success. Now, there are other classifications further down. There's the minor meteor showers that they have listed. These can be good, but generally they're a lot smaller, and they might not have as bright of meteors during their time. And then it gets broken down further and further in different classifications. But you can see there are just dozens of these things that occur, probably more than most of us are even aware of. I would be lying if I said I didn't really keep up with meteor showers too much. During outreach events, people will ask. I'm more aware of, like many of us, more aware of these major meteor showers in the class 1 section, because that's usually the ones that people ask about. But there are plenty of other ones to go off of. But these are the ones that, if you're going to go out, these are the ones that you probably want to put the effort into. And the nice thing is they give you all kinds of descriptions, and you can actually go in further and learn more about, what we're dealing with and where to look and stuff like that. And we'll break down some of that here in a little bit. So, great. The next big question, and I've had plenty of friends and acquaintances ask all the time, how do I observe one? How do I see a meteor shower? And that can be the difficult part, because especially if you're dealing with the public, or if you're dealing with a friend or someone that might not be as aware of how the night sky works and astronomy, and particularly things like this is why this video is going to exist, is there are some things that we need to pay attention. And a lot of times people who are not as familiar with astronomy or how the night sky works or meteor showers, they see it in the news. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a big meteor shower this weekend. We should go check it out. There's some variables that we probably should cover so we understand more of what we're trying to get into. So what do we need to look for? Because there are a few little things that can really tell you how good a meteor shower is going to be. So meteor showers actually take place usually probably over a 2-week time period, as Earth cruises into that debris field and out of that debris field. So if you're in a darker location, sometimes as we approach a peak of a meteor shower, you're going to start seeing more shooting stars, and shooting stars, meteors, it's the same thing. Shooting stars is probably more of the public side of things. The more correct term would be meteors. But you're going to see a ramp up of meteors if you're out observing at that night, or let's say you're going to a star party that's close to a major meteor shower. You're probably going to notice more meteors than average, because you're ramping up to it. But usually there's going to be probably 2 nights that are listed, especially on AMS's website. There's going to be 2 nights usually that are going to be focused on the peak of the meteor shower. This is where you're going to get the most of those, and probably the ideal time if you're planning like an outing with friends. You probably want to plan it around the peak, so you have the most success on getting the brightest meteors and the most meteors in a viewing outing. So like I said, they do last several days. The big factor here with meteor showers, however, is the moon. Much like light pollution, ideally with a meteor shower, you want to get away from the city lights, because unfortunately we no longer live in a location, many of us no longer live in a place where it's dark enough to just go up on a balcony or our rooftop and just lay there and watch, the meteors fly by. Light pollution has really hindered a lot of that, like it's done for the Milky Way or seeing any of these astronomical phenomenon. We usually have to head out to darker skies, which I should have put that bullet point higher. But ideally, if you want to see the best of the best when it comes to meteor showers, you need to get away from city lights. You want to get to those darker locations. Usually darker, the better. So that's one thing. The moon is going to be a big factor as well, because you can drive out to these beautifully dark locations, but if it's a really bright moon, it's going to add light to the sky, kind of like a natural form of light pollution, and that can also affect how many meteors that you're going to see. And if you're planning an outing, I would always recommend going to this website and looking up, what meteor shower is going on. So, like, for example, if we head over right now back to the calendar, which is under the meteor drop down, hopefully it can load. It's just being really buggy this morning on their website, unfortunately. Um, but when you head over to the calendar, it's going to start giving you a lot of the information that we just talked about. Dark skies, you need to be more aware of your current location. Obviously, I'm in Arizona. You're somewhere in the world. I don't know your dark locations. So look around. I would always, as we've talked about on previous episodes, going to dark locations, I would always recommend that you do your research, especially if you're new. Do your research on where the dark spots are. Can I get there? Is it private property? Is there a gate that closes off the park we're going to? Is it state land? Make sure you know the location you're going to. And a lot of these locations that are dark are fairly remote. So it's probably best that you bring at least someone, or if you're going to go out alone, that someone at least knows where you are in case something happens. Because like I said, these are fairly remote locations. Or you're lucky enough to just live under dark skies, and good for you. Maybe you should invite some friends over. But anyway, what I like about this is when you go over to the meteor shower calendar on their website, you'll notice they have all the meteor showers listed. And right up at the top next to the name is the peak nights, which is awesome, and the moon phase. Now, one thing we need to do before we talk about the rest of this is what is the best time to observe a meteor shower, especially during the peak? Well, the best time to observe meteor showers is after midnight. Let me get this going. There we go. So best viewed after midnight, and that's because of Earth's rotation. So if you can imagine, Earth is spinning, doing her thing. As after midnight, the way the Earth works is as we rotate after midnight, wherever we are on the planet, but anywhere, if you're after midnight, you're rotating into kind of the leading edge of Earth's orbit. So as Earth moves through the solar system, as it spins after midnight, you're kind of the windshield, if you will, of Earth at that point. You're on the front-facing part of Earth as it's flying through space after midnight. And you're leading into that meteor shower, and also generally the constellation that the meteor shower has to do with is also rising at that point, because these generally take place later in the evening. You can, during a meteor shower peak, you can go out at pretty much any time, and if you're patient, you'll probably get a handful, depending on the intensity of the meteor shower. But the bigger ones, if you're in a darker location, you have way more success getting more hits per hour at that point. So, and one of the biggest questions that I get, I'm sure if you've ever done outreach as well or dealt with the public, the big question is, what equipment do I need? Do I need a telescope? Do I need binoculars? No, you don't need any of that. That's kind of the beauty of a meteor shower, is you can just kind of exist. You can just sit there and watch as this natural phenomenon takes place. So it's actually really convenient. It's a really kind of a neat way to get involved in astronomy as well, because you don't need anything to do it. You can just go out and be present. That's all it's about. So no equipment is needed. Of course, if you're going somewhere dark and you want to enjoy observing a little bit more, sure, bring a telescope, maybe bring a set of binoculars. It's really kind of up to you how you want to experience it. But honestly, it's okay to just go out and enjoy it. And there's something about it where I don't have any equipment. I'm just going out. Maybe I'm bringing a camera, which we'll get to in a second. But if you're just going out with some friends, you don't need equipment. Just bring your eyes, which I would hope you would have brought them because you're probably driving, and a chair, and maybe some snacks and some drinks. That's it. Just keep it casual. It's some of the nicest times I have are just not using the scope, not dealing with all this equipment and trying to find these little targets. Sometimes it's just nice to sit there and watch. And there's something a bit refreshing with that. So now that we know all that, we can kind of go more back into the details here. So now that we know it's best viewed after midnight, if you want to see the most and the brightest ones, you probably want to aim for the nights that are the peak nights, and you want to pay attention to what the moon phase is going to be. Now, if the moon is really bright, it's going to wash out a lot of the faint meteors, and some of the meteor showers tend to be fainter than others. So Perseids, they're usually the biggest and the brightest. You can catch them even with a bright moon up. But for the best of the best, you want to pay attention to the moon phase. So the recording of this episode is actually one day after the peak of Perseids this year. Recording on August 14th. This will air about a week after sometime. So anyway, Perseids at this point, by the time this episode airs, is trickling out. But the moon this year was quite bright. You can see it was really, sometimes it gives me the percentage. Oh, there it goes, 84%. So we have an 84% lit moon. And it's actually the worst kind that you want, without, having better terminology for that, is usually, because meteor showers take place in best place after midnight, it's not terrible if you have a well-lit moon, like first quarter. A lot of times those tend to set by midnight. So the moon is out of the sky by the time the ideal conditions occur for that. This year for the Perseids, the moon is actually waning now. It's after the full moon has occurred, which means the moon is most present later in the evening till morning. So you really have to deal with the moon at that point. If you have some little crescent, ideally new moon, where there's no moon in the sky at all, is ideal. Sometimes you'll get it, like if you see the Orionids thing right here, you can see that it's a 2% moon, and it will set well before that the meteor shower peak times occur. So the Orionids this year are really well positioned. So this one's probably going to be the big one for this year that you want to pay attention to. It's not a huge meteor shower in comparison to Perseids. It's kind of middle of the road, but it is listed in that class 1 of meteors. And right here, you can see there's all kinds of details right here, but usually about 10 to 20 per hour. But we can have years that are a lot heavier. But if you want to see a good meteor shower coming up, the Orionids would be the one, and it's just before Halloween, and we're at 2% illuminated on the peak night. So that's perfect. So the Orionids looking really good. Southern Taurids, not great because of our moon phase. Northern Taurids, again, moon's kind of done. Leonids should be pretty decent. We have that little crescent there that should be gone. Make sure I'm doing this right. Wait a minute. Leonids might have, I'm trying to make sure I'm not mixing up the moon phases here. So, okay, I see how they've done it. So, I'm sorry. So, when the crescent's on the right side, great. When the crescent's on the left side, not great. So the Leonids are not, the Leonids you should be able to do some good with, but if you're going to try to get those ideal moments, you are going to be dealing with the crescent, thinner crescent moon later in the evening, so it will affect it to some extent. Geminids this year might not be too bad, actually, because we are about first quarter on that moon, and that should set right around midnight. So if you're going to be up later in the evening, after midnight, in the early morning hours before dawn, the Geminids will probably be pretty decent this year. and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of good ones, but the moon becomes a major factor with all of this. Now, something that's really cool on this website, if you want to learn more about each meteor shower, there's usually the active one, the big one that's occurring at the moment. They're going to have this animation here. And if there's it's kind of a hidden link if you're not paying attention, but these are really cool because they're these 3D, and you can move them around and play around with them. But down here at the bottom, there's a link, and it's meteor showers, and it's meteorshowers.org. And you kind of want to play with the dates a little bit, because it can change it up, but it shows you how broad these are and the intensities of these. So you can see how it gets really intense down there by Earth. This is for the Perseids, but you can mess with all of these. So here's the Orionids. You can see that how just dense they actually are. There's the Taurids, Southern Taurids. You can see they're really kind of tiny and condensed there. It's just really interesting. Here's the Lyrids. You can see how Lyrids are really spaced out with this one. Ursids, all kinds of stuff. So it's really kind of neat to sit there and play with it and see all the different forms of how these actually work. Now, you can also do similar things with like Sky Safari and Stellarium, which I'm about to bring up here in a minute. If you play with those apps, a lot of the apps actually have, let me get this configured really quick. But a lot of the apps also list meteor showers. Let me get this into the night. Tables and lines. There we go. So here we go. So let's take a look at this. So right now it's August 14th when I'm recording this, and we're just after the peak. You can see they do have them listed right there. That's usually their position. But we want the Perseids. So where does that take place? Well, the Perseids take place in Perseus. So we need to find Perseus. So here's the Perseid meteor shower. That's the position that you're looking for as time goes by. And you can see there's a little moon right there that's actually kind of washing it out, unfortunately. So, but yeah. But we're going to get into some details here in a second with the terminology for meteor showers and capturing meteor showers. So obviously, if you want to go out and you want to observe a meteor shower, that's one thing. The next question is, well, how do I capture it? Because a lot of us want to take pictures, and there's some really amazing pictures out there. I, unfortunately, have never been able to capture a really awesome shooting star in a picture. I've got some little ones like this one. This was like a few years ago when I went to watch the Perseids. It was a well-positioned one. I think that was 2022. I think, yeah, 2022, I believe, is when I went out and did this one. But when you're shooting meteor showers, you're approaching it like nightscape photography. Camera, wide angle lens, and if you're trying to capture this, you really want a nice wide lens. I probably would recommend wider the better, unless you're trying to do something really specific. But yes, wider the better. Yeah, wider the better. And also faster. We just talked about all this last week in our episode, doing tripod to tracker for nightscape photography. We did go over some of the lenses and stuff like that. And we also have other episodes about wide angle photography. Same thing for meteor showers. You want a camera that can generally do long exposures. Now, the phones are getting better, but they're not great at like having noise-free images. They have a lot of grain to them, and they get a little noisy. If you're looking for a really nice picture, I'd probably use a mirrorless or a DSLR, or if you have one of these point-and-shoot cameras that can do longer exposures, that works too. Some camera that has a nice wide field of view and can do longer exposures, probably at least 30 seconds, would be ideal. And a tripod. because you're not going to want to sit there and hold it because you're going to blur your images. That's really all you need. Now, if you want to shoot longer, you might actually need to get a hold of an intervalometer if your camera doesn't have it to keep the shutter open longer. It really just depends on what exactly you're trying to do. Now, okay, I want to take pictures of this thing. How do I do it? Well, first off, you need to know where the center point of a meteor shower is. Now, there is an actual term for that. It's not just center point. It's called a radiant. A radiant is where all those meteors radiate from. And usually that is listed also on the website here. So it generally tells you somewhere right here. It'll actually give you the actual position of the radiant. If you want to be like super exact, usually it's within the constellation that it's named after. So Perseids, if we go back to Stellarium, you can see it is right here, just to the left of Perseus. So that's kind of where you want to aim for. Or if you have a wide enough lens, just take it over to the constellation. Now, if it's the Geminids, it's Gemini. If it's Orionids, it's Orion. If it's Lyrids, it's Lyra. If it's Leonids, it's Leo. They're named after the constellation. So do a little bit of research before you head out to make sure you know where you're going to be shooting and how to set your camera up. Now, like with nightscapes, well, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead one thing. One thing about meteor showers, though, is it's going to be the luck of the draw. It's not like the nightscape photography world where, oh, I want to get the Milky Way rising over this. Okay, well, just get out there. You know when the time is, and you have a very large window to work with. Solar eclipses and lunar eclipses, you have a much smaller window to work with, but we still know where we need to be aiming and what we need to be working with. Meteor showers, we've reduced it even further. We know the position that we should be aiming for. We want to aim for that radiant, but you don't know what you're going to get, and you don't know when a meteor is going to come flying by. So it's really just luck of the draw. So a nice thing is when you're doing this photography of doing meteor showers, you want to make sure that exposure is open long enough to catch the light. But what you're basically hoping for is that the meteor will fly through during your long exposure, like you see here. This little tiny streak was one that I caught. So, yeah. Now, one thing you should also remember is meteors happen all the time. They don't have to happen during meteor showers, but you can tell which meteors are part of the shower and which ones were just random and happened. Meteors that are occurring from a meteor shower will come out of the direction of the radiant. So if it's the Perseids, they're going to be coming from generally the east or wherever Perseus is at the time. Now, if you're up late and Perseus is high overhead, they're going to be coming straight down at you. But sometimes you'll get another one that just flies randomly from another direction. That's just happens to be a meteor that was coming into the atmosphere, and that's it. It's not part of whatever the meteor shower actually is. You just lucked out and saw a good one. All the ones associated with the actual meteor shower are going to come from the radiant, the direction of the radiant. But it's always luck of the draw. You just have to sit there. Usually the best way to do this is a time lapse, or just have the camera trigger over and over and over again and just let it capture whatever it flies through. So you can program it to literally just sit there and take pictures over and over and over. Now, I have seen people who get these displays of these crazy stars and everything flying through. Unless you're lucked out, a lot of times you want to sit there, and you can actually use a star tracker like a Star Adventurer with it, where you could get a lens and just put your camera on it and aim it towards the radiant again. But instead of the camera just sitting there waiting and the stars are blurring, you use the tracker and you actually have the camera follow the radiant's position as it grows higher into the sky. And then that way, you might be able to even stack some of the images where you apply all of them and all the meteors are flying through in your final stack. So the stars look great because you're tracking, and you can just stack all of that data, smooth it out, because as you stack, you're going to reduce noise. But if you stack it right to where the stacking method doesn't remove the streaks, it'll apply all the meteors that were caught within that time period, and you'll see all these different streaks coming out of the radiant, and they look pretty cool. That takes a little bit more work, a little bit more understanding, especially because we're now incorporating a star tracker, which many of us are familiar with. But if you're new, I would recommend just starting out with your wide angle lens, camera, and a tripod, and just aiming it in the direction of the meteor shower's radiant. And then from there, if you want to get more elaborate, then add a tracker and stuff like that. But the lens stays the same. You're going to be wide angle lens. So there's all kinds of stuff that you can actually do with this. So, but before going out, make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Make sure you are aware, what's the moon phase going to be? What's the radiant going to be? Where's the position of that? And that's going to change as you get different ones. And you can actually see right here that the Orionids and the Geminids are the radiance of, wait, where'd they go? I missed it here. Why did it disappear? Hold on just a second. I don't know why it disappears as it goes higher. You can see the Orionids kind of come out of the arm of Orion, and the Geminids kind of come out of the upper twin, if you will, over here. But you want to pay attention to where it's going to be, so that way you know where you're going with it. So it's very similar to going out to a dark sky site. Just make sure you do your homework. Know where the dark sky site is. Darker is generally better. Having a nice horizon line for earlier in the evening so you can catch some of the early ones is helpful, but I understand some locations don't allow that because of tree lines. What else are we doing? So we did dark skies. Know where the radiant is, and you also want to make sure the moon phase. I wouldn't say it's worth driving all the way out to a dark location if the moon's going to be nearly full and wash the whole thing out. You can, and I've still seen some cool stuff come from that. Just depends what you're into. If it's worth it, great. Usually I'm too busy with family and day-to-day stuff that I'm not able to get out and do really cool meteor shower stuff. That's why I don't have any real nice pictures of one, because a lot of times I'm not able to get out to those locations. Some people are really into it. Now, what I have actually found to be the best move for me is a time lapse. So I like setting up an all sky camera. I'm sure many of us are in the same boat where we don't have time to sit up all night and do this, especially if it's during a weekday. Let me see if I can go full screen on this. There we go. Boop. So what I did is I used an all sky camera. I've done this twice. This one right here, I think, was with a ZWO 462 and the little tiny camera that little tiny lens that comes with it. And I just had it do 10 seconds exposures every 10 seconds throughout the night. And I need to get another one of these cameras, and I had it shoot all these pictures, and then I went in and just stitched it together and made it a time lapse. And these are the Geminids from 2020. And as Gemini rises, which is right here, our radiant is right about here. So you're going to start to see, as the time lapse continues, that as we follow Gemini, you'll notice that the shooting stars or the meteors actually originate from Gemini. They kind of fall from that outward, and that's the radiant. So I actually like doing the time lapses because, like I said, I'm not able to stay up super late and all the time, and it's a lot easier for me to set up a camera and let it do its thing. Now, I've done it again with the Perseid meteor shower, and I had a 360 camera using the Starlight Express all sky camera, which is a really nice system. But there's also kits out there and programs where if you wanted to build a camera that's triggered for meteors, those exist too. They're a little bit more of like a 3D printing project. But yeah, so time lapse is a great way to do it. You can do that with a wide angle camera as well, like the Canon, or Nikon, or whatever you want to use. You could use a fisheye. Like, it might be cool to go rent a fisheye and then set your camera up to do a time lapse all night and just let it do its thing and stitch it all together. I think the time lapses and seeing the sky move, I think that's a really cool way of doing it. But you can approach it in any way that you want. And the nice thing is it's relatively simple. We don't need a lot of really advanced, crazy, expensive equipment to enjoy a meteor shower or even capture these really cool pictures of a meteor shower. You can make it as complex as you want it to be. I do know people who have all sky cams on their house that are designed to look for meteors. That's a cool way to do it. You could go get one of these little ZWO guide cameras and use the little wide angle lens that they come with. That's another way to do it. You can use your mirrorless or DSLR camera with a fisheye or wide angle. That's a way to do it. So the thought process is really the same across the board. It just depends on how elaborate you want the camera system to be, and of course, what resolution do you want it to be. So there's all kinds of stuff that you're actually able to do when it comes to meteor showers. But the big thing is, if you really want to get out and enjoy it and you really want to see it for what they can be, it's going to take a little bit of planning and a little understanding. So find yourself a nice dark sky site. Please make sure you know where you're going. I would recommend taking a friend, especially if you've never been there before. If you're really planning it, it's probably not a bad idea to go out to that location during the day and understand, okay, here's where I want to set up. Is there a restroom? Do I need anything? How hard is it to get to this location? Become familiar with it. I have a couple locations nearby within an hour that I've done stargazing events at or observed with friends. So there's a handful of sites that I know really well to get to, and I will even recommend them to friends that want to go see it. It's like, well, this spot's really decent. So go out there and check it out. So there's plenty of good spots, I'm sure, out there for people. Just make sure you're aware of your surroundings, where you're going, and how to get there safely. Try to make sure you know what the moon phase is going to be, so you're not really just sitting there wasting your time with this really bright moon. And if you are going to take pictures, make sure you know your equipment. A lot of times, unless you know what you're doing, you don't want to be fumbling around in the dark with your camera settings. So practice a little bit. Go out, do some nightscape photography, practice in the backyard. It's a lot of stuff now, it's digital. If it's not great, delete it, start over and try again. So there's plenty of options out there for us to do all kinds of things. So that's really all there is to it with meteor showers. They're not very complicated at all. So just ultimately figure out a good spot to go, watch the moon phases, make sure it corresponds to making it a good meteor shower. Watch the list. If it's a bigger meteor shower, if it's a minor meteor shower, is it worth the effort to go somewhere? And then plan your outing accordingly. And then you should be good to go at that point. So they're really easy to be successful on. With just a very, very little bit of effort, you can really, really enjoy going to some of these events. So, but that's pretty much it for observing meteor showers. I know we're finishing a little bit short. That's usually because a lot of our extra time is filled up with questions. But again, thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful for some people. Good luck if you're going to go out and try to, especially the Orionids that's coming up. Those are going to be probably the best positioned one for the rest of the year. So if you're looking for a meteor shower, There's one coming up that it's already all good from the astronomy side of things. It's decently bright and the moon isn't a problem. So now it all comes down to you. If we're going to go to a dark sky site, does it work for the peak nights for us to go out there? So I would definitely recommend, at least for 2025 when this was recorded, for this year upcoming, check out the Orionids this fall in 2025. In the future, if you're watching this, go to the AMS website and watch the moon phase and see which ones probably have the best luck in getting a hold of some good stuff to see. Again, if you like what you see here, please go ahead and subscribe, leave a like on a video. It really helps us out, lets us know we're doing a good job. We're already at like 14,000 subscribers right now, so thank you all for being supportive of the channel. It's always nice to talk to you guys and meet you in person. Again, subscribe, leave a like on a video. If you have an idea for an episode, email us at info@skywatchusa.com and title it What's Up. We're always looking for new ideas. Now, next week, we have Ben Hauk of Celestron. He's the Senior Vice President of Sales for Celestron. He's going to be on. We're going to be talking all things telescope industry. We'll talk about the Celestron origin a little bit, all kinds of cool stuff. So if you've got questions, Ben's been doing this for years, and he has a tremendous amount of knowledge for astronomy, but also the understanding of the telescope market. He's a very interesting person to talk to, and he's seen a lot. So it'll be really cool to have Ben on next week. So we hope to see you there. That will be a live episode, by the way. So join us next week, and we will see you there. So thanks again, everyone. I really appreciate you guys, being here, and see you guys at Starfest. And other than that, have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. Clear skies. And we will see you guys next week with Ben for another What's Up webcast episode. And like I said before, it will be live once again. So thank you very much, everyone. Clear skies. Have a great weekend. And we'll see you soon. See ya. Bye.